Well, my name's Larry. I'm the pastor at First Christian Church in Guyman, Oklahoma. I know some of the camp kids back there. It's good to see you guys. You're thinking, holy cow, what are we doing? I have no idea, but this is Mark's fault. So, Mark, for about about 2 years, you've been threatening to pull this off. So a couple years ago at camp, he said, "Oh, Larry, you are so funny. I should have you come to my church." And it's like, okay, so you know how you make those little statements, you kind of lock them way back in your head. You think maybe nothing will ever come about it. This summer, again, back at church camp in June, he said, "Oh, Larry, I should totally have you at our church, and we would just do a comedy show." And I was like, "Mark, you don't realize how this works." Okay, just lock it away. Maybe I can push it off for another year. So about 4 months ago, you were trying to get me before Christmas. And he calls me up, and he says, "Hey, Larry, remember when I talked to you about camp, about coming to be funny at our church?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Hey, how about if you do that now?" I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." So we were talking on the phone about this, and Mark, you're going to enjoy this, okay? Because we're at our table. I got my wife and Natalie are here with me, and I'm trying to explain to them that, guess what? Mark wants me to do stand-up comedy at his church in the basement. Okay? Now, Mark, here's the conversation that went on in our house when I was sitting down at the dinner table to say, "Oh, by the way, Mark called me and we have a day scheduled." Renee's like, "Well, who is this Mark guy?" And I said, "Well, you know, I am the youngest old guy or the oldest young guy when it comes to adults at camp. However, I'm the dude that's like right in between." And Natalie says, "Well, he's a freedom. I mean, he's got to be older than Dad, but he still gets around okay." So that's the conversation about how this whole thing went down. And so in trying to put this together, wow, where do we go? So I guess this would be a bucket list item for me. How do you know? I'm really not started into comedy because here's my thing: being a pastor, if you can make people laugh on Sunday morning when they're sober, it ought to be pretty easy to make them laugh Saturday night when they're drunk. Yeah, that's how this works. And so one of the things is that my dad and I, growing up, we would watch commercials and we would totally make fun of them. Because really half of the commercials on TV are terrible. The other half, they're okay, but it's just one of those crazy things. And so my dad and I, we would make fun of commercials. Now, for the kids, I hate to break this to you, okay? Because I'm going to tell a joke that none of you are going to get. Which means that you aren't old. And here's why. One of the things, if you've ever watched, and we watch TV nowadays, when I was growing up, we had commercials for kids' cereal. We had commercials for kids' cereal. We don't have commercials for kids' cereal these days, at least not on the Dish Network that I get at my house. And so there's a story that was told, and I will usually tell this at camp, because usually what happens is that I will get in a cabin with a bunch of rowdy guys, and it's like, "Oh, Larry, would you please tell us a story?" This is the story that I tell them to put them to sleep. So there was a Jewish proselyte rabbi who he was told, okay, God said, "You need to go to this island and tell them about me." Okay, so off he goes to this island. And when he gets on the island, there are two different kinds of people on this island. First off is that there's the Gurns. And the Gurns are the big warrior. I mean, they're like 7'1.5". They're humongous. Got great big, headdresses and things like that, and they're on this tropical island, which isn't a bad place to be anyway. And then also on the island, there are these short guys called the trids. Short people called the trids. They're about 3.5 feet, 4 feet tall. And one of the things that, as the rabbi gets there, and he's trying to learn the language and trying to learn the culture, what he would see is that the great big gurns would come up and kick these little guys. I mean, just anytime they wanted to. Well, the rabbi, after watching this for 6 or 7 months, said, how in the world do we put a stop to this? Because this injustice shouldn't go on any longer. And he gets up and he makes a petition to the chief, and the chief decides to hear him. And on one particular night, they call this Jewish rabbi in, and he goes in and he talks to the big council. The council's all set up in this great big tiki hut type of thing. And here's the chief gurn. He's about 8'6". I mean, he's just head and shoulders taller than all the rest of them, sitting on this great big throne. And he goes in and says, I've seen a great injustice on your island. And God does not want you to treat people this way. You should be nice to the little trids. And the chief gurn said, oh, but you don't understand. Many, 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 many years ago, we saved them. And part of us saving them, we entered into a contract, we entered into an agreement that they have to do anything that we ask, and if we get mad, we can kick them. And you just haul off and kick them. Well, the rabbi said, but don't you see that enough time has gone past? God wants you to forgive, and here's the big chief. He says, oh, silly rabbi. Everyone knows that kicks are for trids. Isn't that terrible? Now, see, the reason these guys don't get it, they've never seen the commercials. Yeah. So now, guys, if you go to school and you tell that story, your friends will look at you weird. Okay, I'm just telling you. Some of the other stuff we're going to talk about is pretty fun. One of the things that I realize in my life is that I'm getting older. Couple things here that in the last couple weeks, we're getting ready for church camp down here at Boiling Springs church camp, and I had a chance to go to the Christian Camp Leaders Conference. And at the Christian Camp Leaders Conference, is one of these things that we're coming back from a conference with one of my elders. I get a phone call from the guy who's running this. He said, hey, would you come to the Christian Camp Leaders Conference? I've heard about Boiling Springs. You've heard about Boiling Springs where? Oh, I found you guys on Facebook. I said, okay, well, let's talk about it. He said, yeah, no, we have this great big week. We come in and we talk about how to do camp and learn some different things. So that sounds great. He said, how about if you go ahead and come on over with us? I said, that's fine. How much is it? 3 days. We go for 3 days, $450. I don't pay that price for camp. $450. Oh no, but it's at the Chateau on the lake in Branson. I don't take my family. When we go to Branson, we're staying at the mom and pop Podunk Inn up there on the northern end. You know, I'm not $450 for one of us. That's fine. I'll just go ahead and pay that out of my pocket. He said, oh no, we've got a scholarship. Okay, great. So this whole scholarship thing happens, and I go in, and I'm walking into this. They have a 25 to 30 foot tree in the lobby. 10 stories, beautiful, beautiful hotel and things like that. They have birds that they will let out of the cage to go fly in the tree, and then the birds, they come back in. I've never ever seen anything like this. I walk in. There's a bellman. Now, these are bellhop. These are the guys who, just again, for you kids to learn this. These are people that are paid to carry your baggage in. Okay? Now, I'm a pastor. I carry my own baggage because I'm cheap. So they're holding the door. I said, thank you very much. And we're just kind of walking. I walk in, and there's a guy handing out pens. And somewhere in my head, it's like, I recognize you from somewhere. Have you ever been in that spot? I recognize you from somewhere, but I'm not exactly sure where it is. So I'm sitting here talking with this guy. His name is Jeff Langley. Jeff Langley is with a mission group out of Denver, Colorado that I've never heard of. I'm sure you'll need a pen. You don't know me. Okay, well, here's your pen. And so I said, Jeff, you look familiar. You look familiar. I just can't quite put you in the context that my brain has seen you. He said, well, I'm from Denver, Colorado. No, I've been to Denver like 2 or 3 times. That's not it. So we start talking. So where are you at? I said, I'm in Guyman, Oklahoma. Now, nobody comes from Guyman. I might have to use the stand here for this for just a second. And I say, he said, Guyman, Oklahoma, where's that? And I said, well, it's a good thing that I brought my map. Okay? So, yeah, all right, that won't be fun. So Jeff says, I'm deaf in this ear. Not really, but. So Jeff says, so where is Guyman, Oklahoma? I said, it's a good thing I brought my map, and I do this. This is my, we live in Oklahoma. This is our map of Oklahoma. Okay? Yeah, see? Right now. Hey, Mark's getting it. This has got to be pretty funny. So here it is. This is my map of Oklahoma, and I live right there. I live right there. This is Texas. This part of my finger is Texas. We got 3 counties out here. This is my Texas county. He said, no, I was in Enid for like 3 years. It's like, Enid? I grew up in Enid. Really? You grew up in Enid? I said, yeah. I played softball at Davis Park Christian Church. I said, that's probably where I know you from. I grew up going to Davis Park Christian Church. And it's one of these things that, isn't it always kind of funny and a little bit strange how sometimes we'll make connections with people that we've never ever put that together. So I'm going down, just kind of doing my thing here at the Christian Camp Leaders Retreat. And there's a guy who's walking around. He is bald, glasses, a little bit of a mustache, about my size. And we're walking by each other. And you've been in this situation where you're walking by somebody, it's like, oh, I think I may know this person. We sit there and we look at each other's name tags. He's seeing Larry Watson on my name tag. I'm seeing Gary Baker's on his. Gary Baker. Where do I know a Gary Baker from? And it's just, man, it is just not coming to me. It is just not coming. And I realize at this point in time, I'm getting older. Okay? And so Gary and I, we know we recognize each other from somewhere. We're just not exactly sure where that somewhere is. And so we try to avoid it for about the first hour there as we're kind of mulling around the 250 people. And finally he comes up to me and says, I know you from somewhere. I know you. Where are you at? Well, it's a good thing I've got my map. And I said, Gary, I live in Guyman, Oklahoma. Where's Guyman, Oklahoma? So let me show you where Guyman, I get my map out. This is where I live, Texas County, Guyman, Oklahoma, right there in the middle. No, I live in southern Indiana. Southern Indiana, whereabouts in southern Indiana? South of Indianapolis, thank you. South of Indianapolis is southern, that's how north-south works. And so, thank you, Gary. That's absolutely no help. So, Gary, I spent some time in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that whole area. Maybe we know each other from, no, not there at all. And so we said, well, okay, whatever. We go on to our next workshop. We do the workshop thing. We get out. So, I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you from? And Gary and I are still trying to put this whole thing together. And I said, Gary, if you've never been to Oklahoma and I've never spent time in southern Indiana, I don't know where it was we would have met each other. He said, I went to Johnson University. I went to Ozark Christian College. We would have not ever done anything like that. The main session shows up. We go our different ways. And he comes back up after the main session. This is now going on 3 hours. We have been trying to figure out how we know each other from. So I come out there in the lobby where the tree is, and he's sitting in the chair talking with a couple guys, and I just walk up to him and said, okay, we have to figure this whole thing out one way or the other. And he said, okay. He said, what else have you done? Well, I've done this thing through Asbury Theological Seminary called the Beeson Institute. He goes, for advanced church leadership. I said, you are right. Now, here's how bad this is. For 2 years, 3 times a year, we shared a hotel room. Isn't that pretty bad? You know you're getting older? Yeah. So, I'm a little bit of a nerd. We're going to talk a little bit about my nerd stuff here in a little bit. But anyway, one of the things, so when I go on these trips and things like that, I will usually pack, I've got these 2 little boxes, and I do miniature war games, which is, a little nerdy. And I got my little paints and my little brushes, and I carry them with me. And it's like, oh, there's a place down there that I can go paint. So I walk in with my little nerd box. And there's a conference table. It's got great lighting. So I can paint here for just a little bit. And so I go in there, and as I'm walking around the corner, here's Gary. And his wife. And a couple guys that he knows, and a couple guys that I've met. And I come over, and I sit down in one of the nice chairs, and I'm just kind of nerding out for just a moment. And Gary says, so what else do you remember about Beeson Institute for Advanced Church Leadership? So, oh, Gary, let me tell you the story. And so, as we were talking, I said, Gary, do you remember this? We were in Los Angeles, California. One of the classes that we did was out at the Crystal Cathedral. And we went out to the Crystal Cathedral, got to eat lunch with Robert Schuller, got to meet him and his son. And there's about 120 of us pastors being able to do this. And we just drank from the fire hose for about three weeks a year. And I said, Gary, first off, here's what I remember of you. You sat in the back, because it would be me and John, and the 3 of us would share a hotel room, because we're pastors and we're chief. I said, Gary, I have no idea what you ate. But the smell that was coming from the back seat was just darn near enough to run us out of the car. And he was like, oh man, the only thing you remember about me from 10, 15 years ago was the smell that I made in the back. That's pretty bad. So don't know, it gets worse. So we're sitting there, and one of the things that we did is that we would get in the car and we would drive around. And John's idea was, oh, hey, let's go over to the beach, and let's drive around over there, and let's drive around over here. And we're in a rental car, driving over if you've ever been in a rental car driving through Los Angeles, there's 3 pastors, rental car, Los Angeles. There's a joke coming up, right? Well, I was driving. I pulled up to a stop sign, and across the road, because I can remember it, was this church that had bars on every window because they're in that part of town. And, I'm thinking, well, we were kind of stopped because there's not a lot of traffic where we were. It's like, wouldn't it be interesting? I mean, aren't you thankful that we're not in a church that you have to have bars on the windows and bars to get in and out of the parking lot? He said, oh, Gary's in the back seat. He said, what I think is more interesting is this business over here. He points to the left. He kind of points us out there. And I'm driving, and I look out the left window. He said, look at that. There's a business here that does carpet and furniture stripping. They do carpet and furniture stripping. Now, have you ever had one of those glances when you're driving and you're not exactly sure that you're seeing what you're seeing? And I'm telling this story back to Gary because apparently he doesn't remember it. It's the funniest thing that happened on a trip, because I've told this story many times. What he pointed out, the sign that was up there in the air said cabaret and stripping. Tony, that wasn't a carpet laying business. Yeah. And it's like, oh, we just kind of had a giggle about that. So here's some other things about church camp that you might be afraid of a little bit. When I go to church camp, apparently we as the adults are supposed to like be in charge of the kids. And how this works is I will wake up in the morning, whenever I wake up, and I'll grab my little cell phone, I'll turn it on, and I'll play the Pandora app. Okay, so playing Pandora. Listen, usually at the church, church camp, what are you listening to? No, we don't listen to worship music when I've got my phone on me. I've usually got stuff like Captain and Tennille. Now, kids, you'll have to go look this up. Maurice, Robin, and Barry, the brothers Gibb. And so usually what happens is that I'm usually walking into the big mess hall there at camp with, you can tell by the way he used to walk, he was Oh, it gets better. So I'm listening to the Bee Gees, walking into camp, and I'm going into the kitchen there where Mark Smith, or down from Hinton, is over there. And this is what she says. Oh, you can tell Larry's here because he's got music in his pants. Oh, golly. Yeah. Music in my pants. Of all the things you could ever walk away from church camp, of anything being said from you, is that, oh, there goes Larry. He's got music in his pants. Now, it was about this time that she said this that some other adults who had not heard part of the conversation were coming in from the back part of the kitchen. And I can just imagine what that would have been like. Oh, here's Larry and the camp cook, and you walk into, oh, there's Larry. He's got music in his pants. What in the world? So one of the funny things that we've been able to do here over church camp time is a couple of years ago, my church, the church that I serve is an absolutely magnificent church. And I'm going to get ready to show you this, why they're a magnificent church. Mark has bugged me 4 times since we started this whole thing. To Larry, you gotta, when you come do this thing tonight, you got to bring it. Bring it.
Turn your mic on.
Did it turn back off? Oh, it did turn back off. He said, Larry, you got to do that. You got to bring that thing. And I was like, okay, so give me just a moment. I'm going to go over here and get my stuff. Now, when I was talking earlier about my nerddom, okay, there is a little bit of nerddom that happens in my world. This is my Christmas gift from my church. Yeah. Now, any Star Wars fans here? Okay, got a couple. There's like 4 of us nerds. 5, 6. Okay, I see that hand. Okay. Here's the thing for us. Now, the reality of it is that for us nerds in a small town, we're already outnumbered. Okay, that's how it works, right? Oh, you're a nerd. How did you make it to 12? Especially in a small town, being a nerd. So, here goes.
Oh, cool.
And so this is what my church got me, and it makes. Yeah, there's a nerd over here. Yeah, see? Yeah. Amazing power, isn't it? Amazing power. All right, go ahead and come on up here. Go ahead and come on up. Now this one is my son's. He's cheap. His doesn't make sound. It's just a glorified light. Okay, so here we go. All right? Yeah, so that's how nerds do this stuff in small towns. Hang on. You stay up here. You got the lightsaber. We're all. I'm still going home with me at the end of the night. Oh man. Oh my. So what Mark doesn't know or didn't know is that this is one layer. There it goes. So I have got a whole set of Jedi robes. All right, give him a big round of applause. Now, Tony, how this works. Because I can tell your inquiring minds want to know. Okay? So if you'll push that green button, it'll turn off. Just go ahead and push it. Yep. There it goes. And then this, because nerds have thought this out. This is a key that shuts the battery off in here, but then I can also charge it through there. So I have a wall charger that I have to charge these things up with. So, and you're thinking, Larry, how much does a lightsaber cost? And I want you to think about this. If you would give it to your pastor as a gift for Christmas, and it takes a whole church to come up with it, that would give you a good idea of the price. Yeah. So, for the 6 of us who are nerds, the rest of this probably won't be funny for the next couple minutes. But does C-3PO really realize how stupid he is? No, really. It's just one of these things. Yesterday on TNT, if you know, because we're nerds, on TNT yesterday I had a whole Star Wars marathon. And so I watched episode 4 in A New Hope, which is the very first one that I got to see in theaters when I was 10. Now, when I was 10, some of you will do math and you'll put this stuff together really quickly. Okay? When I was 10, it was the summer of 1977. And I can remember in around, April of 1977, on TV screens came the commercials for Star Wars getting released on Memorial Day weekend. Now here's something that you don't realize about movies. Memorial Day weekend is the worst time to launch a movie. Because people don't go out and watch movies. And so you know what, we'll give, here's George Lucas. Oh, I've got this little thing called Star Wars. And as I was watching the commercial, here comes the Death Star. And I got to go see this movie. I'm 10 years old. I got to go see this movie. And I'm trying to talk my dad when I'm 10 years old into going to let me go see this movie. And here's the words of my dad, I kid you not. He said, that looks about the stupidest movie you've ever seen. It won't be out for a week before it's just gone. Nobody will ever pay attention to it. Now, of all the things that my dad has said, that's one of the few things that he got wrong. Right up there with, no, I would never buy stock in Apple. And probably the worst thing is that I had a bunch of baseball cards until my mom threw them out. Yeah. My dad realizes all that stuff that I thought was in, just mom can throw it out. I could have retired on that. He said, yeah. So this is, yeah. A lot of us have been there, right? That's a sign that we're getting older. You know, is it when you look back on what your mom threw out? Oh, I could have retired on that. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I was a nerd. Here's the funny thing about what happened though, is that one of the things that happened is in the last year or two, The Last Jedi came out. And my dad happened to be in town with my mom, and my mom doesn't get out much, but it's coming out. It's Christmas time. Said, oh, Dad, you have to go with Nathaniel and me, my youngest son. You have to go with us to go see The Last Jedi. And my dad said, I've not been to the movie since Passion of the Christ. That's not getting out for a little bit. You know. Because I think the movie that he saw before that was Wizard of Oz. So here's the thing. Yeah. So my dad, I have to prep him for this because I have Jedi robes. And I have a lightsaber. Yeah, you can already tell where this is going, can't you? So here's what happens, is that we were a bad 80s movie going to the movie theater that night, okay? Because you really weren't sure, because I told my dad, I said, now Dad, I want to get all of my Jedi robes on. Now, the only way that I can get these on is with my wife's help, okay? Because there is stuff that ties in the back, and it's a two-person job to get this whole thing on. And my son Nathaniel, his purple lightsaber there, he has a very, he's cheap. Okay? He has like some brown corduroys and a t-shirt that he's cut apart for his costume. So I'm here, I'm the Jedi Master, I've got my Padawan here. Now, my dad, Rick, I'm going to pick on you just because I know your name, but you so picture this. You really do. I mean, I could put you and my dad and you guys would look like cousins right now. Because notice what he's wearing. He's got this really nice vest, and this is what my dad wears. It's just this really nice vest, but it's quilted, like Marty McFly. And I can tell that when we're walking into the movie theater in Guyman, first off, oh great, here comes the pastor. But then it's like, Star Wars and Back to the Future? This kind of one of those, it's like, Dad, I'm just sorry, how's it going to work? Okay, well, let's go on and do it. So, that's kind of some fun things here. So, talking about nerd stuff for just a little bit. For those of us who are nerds, there's a handful of us. Most nerds live in the basement because their parents have put them there for a reason. And it's kind of fun being a nerd that's been married for 29 years. Because it gives all the other nerds out there hope. You know? So when you see a nerd that's married, here's some things, is that we are here to give other people hope in the world. So in nerd culture, right now there's a big thing of board games. And if you're not Monopoly board games, I mean, we're talking board games with massive rules, okay? That you have to do like 17 steps just to go past one. So here's the funny thing, is that I got invited to be part of a nerd herd, I guess, a couple years ago. Yeah, Tony, it's this bad. Okay. My wife calls me up. She said, "Oh, I found some more nerds, so you can go hang out with them." She and a lady from work were talking, and she said, "Oh, my son's a nerd. He lives in the basement. He and his friends play board games out in the garage because I won't let him in the house." And this is what my wife says. We've been married for a while. Oh, my husband would love that. And so here's what happened with me getting into the nerd herd. And it's really kind of sad, really, because one night at Nerd Herd, you kind of have to show up with your lightsaber to give you any kind of street cred. See, Tony and I we're just going to have a good time. So, I get, come play board games with us. Okay, so I walk in, and here's the thing, is that they're all millennials and younger.
Oh, boy.
And I'm a grandfather. And they're like, remember that song at Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other? How it's working at Nerd Herd night. And so I go in, and they've... guys who's putting this thing together said, "No, oh, Larry, we play every Friday night. We'll start at about 8, and we'll go till like 3, 4, 5 in the morning." At the age of 50, I don't see 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And so one particular night, we get out this game. And the game is basically we're out fighting monsters, and everybody gets this little part. And the guy that I got handed to me, because my friend Sam, who runs the thing, thought it would be fun, is that let's give Larry the senator card. So I'm like the senator. Which now the cool thing about the senator is I get extra money every turn, and I get to send stuff all over the world. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's what senators do. They just spend money and send stuff all over the world. And so in this game, we're doing this, and 8 o'clock, we start playing. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. At about 11:30, my character finally makes my first move. I've been buying stuff and sending stuff all over the world. 11:30. Okay, guys, pay attention. I am making my first move. 1 step. My guy goes from like Washington D.C. to like Canada. Just my one step. 12:30, 1 o'clock, 1:15. We have this major powwow about how to beat the game. Oh, Larry, you got to go back to Washington, D.C. Three o'clock rolls around. Now, I'm not sure if you've been around 50-year-olds at 3 o'clock in the morning. Playing games where for the last 5.5 hours you've gone from one step. At this point in time, my brain's about ready to explode. I said, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to go. Oh, we had so much fun. Now, it was fun, but it's like, oh. So I can, here's my thing. What are you going to tell Renee? What are you going to tell Renee? I'm going to tell Renee what we did. After 6.5 hours of playing this game, I went, yeah, so that's, But now here's the other fun thing about this, is that for us older guys, how many of us have ever been around millennials on purpose? Okay? Now, it's not like we're not around them. Are we around them on purpose? I need to go over here and get a drink. So I can already tell my voice is starting to go. So, let me see if I can describe this. You want to talk about a fish out of water. Here's how being a pastor in a game group that goes from 8 to 3 in the morning works. Larry, you're a pastor. Yes, why do you hang out with us? Because it's fun, because none of my church people will do this. At our game night, we play marbles and cards, which is kind of a big thing like sorry, but that's about as, that's about as exciting as we get at church. I said, you guys are fun, but tell us about your politics. Oh, you really want me to? Now, I know that Freedom Christian Church, right? Yeah. I'm at First Christian Church Guyman, but disciples. So I'm at disciples. I'm at a disciples church, and I'm a conservative in a disciples church, which that's really weird to begin with, until you start hanging out with some millennial nerds. And so we had this one discussion one night about, you know, Larry, the one thing I just really don't like about conservatives, all right, lay it on me, lay it on, tell me all about it, is you guys just spend gas like it's going out of style. Right? You're right. And this was the idea that was presented. Oh, you know, like where Walmart is? Just think about all the green stuff, all the green land we could save if we just moved Walmart closer to the road in Guyman, Oklahoma, and we all took the bus everywhere. I was like, wait, a bus every, what? So no, you can get on the bus and go to Walmart, get all your stuff, get back on the bus and drive. It's Guyman, Oklahoma. He said, but just think about how much all this stuff you'd save. And it's like, dude, I don't get you. He said, well, doesn't it bother you that you like spent all this gas driving around? I said, not at all. Why is that? Because I have money. I mean, it's, but maybe I just watch a little. Oh my goodness, it's just going a little bit crazy there. But one of the things that I understand is that we all have differences. And we all have differences about how we see things. We all have differences about how we think things through and how we process those things. And sometimes it's important for us to actually get into how it is that we understand things. As a pastor, sometimes us pastors can be a little ornery. Has Mark ever been ornery with you? Yeah. Well, Mark, I'm about ready to teach you some new things. I was in a church up north. We were up in northern Indiana, and the fun thing is that we're having church work day. Have you ever had Saturday afternoon church work day? Right? Church work day is we're cleaning the kitchen, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're kind of getting the whole building all cleaned up. And I was in the basement where me and the two, yeah, like Larry, yeah, you do this. And one of the ladies, who was one of our elders' wives, she came to me and she said, Larry, got a question for you. He said, sure. What do we clean the baptistry out with? And I said, well, we should have a bottle of Sin Be Gone somewhere. She's like, Sin Be Gone? Well, I had to stop and explain it to her. I said, okay, so here's the thing, Sheila. You know that when a person's baptized, right, our sins are what? Well, she said, washed away. Exactly. But they stick on the inside of the tub. And she's like, well, I never thought about it, but that makes sense. But we've done church work day for a lot of years, and it's not like it's underneath the cabinet somewhere. I mean, do we have to get this at the Christian bookstore? And it's at this point in time that I can no longer hold it. Because then she realizes, oh, you're messing with me. So when I think about stories that we as church people do, there's some fun things. Her husband was an elder. His name was Croc. Croc was a humongous guy. Nobody actually knew his real name. He was just called Croc. And the reason he was called Croc is that as a little kid he would say, "See you later, alligator," and everybody would have to say, after a while, crocodile. And Croc stuck with that. He just got called Croc by everybody when he says, "See you later, alligator." Just Croc is how it. Croc was telling me a story about how he's remodeling his house. And he said, you know, there was a point in time we were redoing the cabinets in our house, and I needed like a 2.5-inch hole to run some plumbing underneath the sink. And I go out to the garage, I can't find my hole saws, I can't find any of this, but I know what I can do. So I go to my closet and I get my 12 gauge. and as Croc tells the story, he said, okay, so Larry, here it is. We got the cabinets installed. I need a hole in the bottom, 2.5 inches. I've got my 12 gauge. That ought to be all right. So he says, I get one foot on top of the cabinet, the other foot on top of the other cabinet. And this is where he goes. He says, I'm kind of doing this just to see. He said, about right there. I figured it was about 2.5 inches. He's squeezing. Boom! I mean, he blows the whole house. It's at this point in time he realizes he's on top of a finished basement. Your life's seeming pretty good right now. Yeah. So this church that I was at, when we went there, when we started, we had a funeral about 3 weeks into it. And the gentleman whose wife passed away came and said, Larry, you just need to understand some things. Our previous pastor's coming back and I want him to lead songs. And I said, that sounds fantastic. And so the day of the service came and Matt shows up. And I introduced, hi, I'm Larry. Hi, I'm Matt. He said, isn't it a wonderful church? He said, I don't know, I've only been here for 3 weeks.
Right.
Change that joke, Mark. So the service starts, and I'm up front. I'm up front. You got the big preacher chair up there, and I'm sitting in the big preacher chair, and Matt comes over behind the pulpit, and he starts doing the music for this. I'm welcome. Hey, everybody, so thankful that you're here. Paul and his family are so thankful that you're here. Matt's going to play right now, Peace in the Valley. So Matt walks over, grabs his guitar, puts his guitar on, and I'm sitting behind him. He's at the pulpit. And this is what I'm singing. And this is what I hear. Oh, there'll be peace in the valley. Now, at a funeral, I'm looking out, and this is not fazing anybody. And I've got the back row seats to Elvis. Well, there'll be peace in the valley. I know. I'm going to start to lose my voice anyway. It's a good time. And at this point in time, up on the stage, I'm just wanting to do one of those slide outs. Just get me out of the chair, get me out of the stage, get me underneath the first pew. It's at this point in time I'm looking at my Bible and I'm looking at my notes. And I look up and my beautiful wife is there. And I can no longer hold this in. So I'm like studying my notes like this. We do the prayer, we read the obituary. I sit back down because Matt's ready to do his next number. Well, amazing how sweet are the sound. And have you ever had to hold it together because you know it's an inappropriate time to laugh. When we get done with the service, and like that was on a Wednesday or Thursday. Saturday, I'm over back at the church building, folding bulletins, and Sheila, who I talked about earlier, walks up to me and she said, "Oh, isn't he just wonderful? Isn't he just a wonderful singer?" To which I said, "I can tell that he's pretty heavily influenced by Elvis." And she says, "Oh, he's an Elvis impersonator." That makes sense. At what point in time did you think that this was appropriate to tell me? 3 days after is not. Now, that's that. Yeah. Let's talk about church more because apparently it's funny. We're in a small church. In fact, when Mark was giving me the nickel tour, just kind of showing me around, hey, this church is very much a cookie cutter of a church that I served in southern Illinois. And Renee's already, the same stairs, the same office. Just really cookie cutter church. You come in the front, you can go downstairs, go upstairs. And this one particular funeral that I was doing, I was doing with a gentleman by the name of Chester Donahoe. When Chester was a man who loved Jesus, but have you ever been around somebody who loves Jesus, but you really shouldn't have them speak in public? Okay? Speak in public. Chester and I were doing this service. A friend of his passed away, a gentleman in the church, and we were walking down after the service, and we're walking down together and he stops about halfway down the row. So just imagine upstairs, where he and I are walking out together, and he pulls on the side of my suit coat. He says, "Larry." "Yes, Chester." "How do you say all that stuff?" Because kind of here's what Chester would do. The funeral home director and I were talking, and again, Chester loves Jesus, but Chester's funny. Have you ever noticed anybody who sometimes maybe they just do really difficult for them to talk because of the emotion of the moment? And so Chester was doing a service, and he's up there, and he said, the lady who passed away, this is how it went. He said, she really was. Well, we all know she was. and at this particular service, because I'd been warned about Chester, he says, "How do you say all that stuff? Man, you said a lot." Chester had difficulty talking about growing up with them because, when we were kids, we were kids. We were small, we were young, we were kids. When we were small and we were kids, we would go out and we would play. It was kind of the film. It's like we would go out. Well, bread was a quarter. Bread was, or whatever. It's like, oh golly. Anyway, love Chester, but it's just one of those funny things that happens. In the same church, we had a gentleman by the name of Sam Tate. Sam Tate had gone through 3 hip replacements because he wore them out. At 84 years old or so, when he got his first hip replacement, he said to the doctor, so if I wear this out, you'll replace it for free. And the doctor said yes. And that was back in his 60s. He said, I already had one because I wore that one out in about 6 years, wore the next one out after about 8 years. And I went back to the doctor and he said, yeah, I told you, but this is the last one. You're 84, I ain't going to do it again. and so Sam Tate was like, Larry, I got to go up to Springfield to go see the doctor. Would you take me? I said, sure. But Sam, here's the deal. You're buying lunch and I'm picking where we eat. And, you know, if you've ever taken somebody in their 80s to a place that they're not too sure about, because it's a dive, that's how this works. And so I said, Sam, now remember, you don't get to gripe. You don't get to gripe. We're going to go to Jimmy John's sandwich shop. Now, you're thinking Jimmy John's sandwich shop like the one I've seen in Oklahoma City. This is Jimmy John's sandwich shop when it was still mom and pop. And so we walk in, and Sam is like, well, this is pretty strange. It's got pictures of rock stars and guitars and stuff hanging on the walls, and he's kind of, preacher, I ain't never been in a place like this before. It's like, I know, but right? So but order a sandwich. And you could go up to Jimmy, the way Jimmy John's was set up in downtown Springfield is that they have all of these hot sauces on the back row. I said, now Sam, you get whatever it is that you want, you're buying. And he's sitting there saying, what are all those? I said, hot sauce. I didn't know they ever made so many hot sauces in my entire life. Never thought I'd ever see them all. I don't like hot sauce. Then don't get it. You know, we sat down, we had our sandwich, and Sam was just one of those guys that when you meet at church, oh man, just the funny stories that go on. I'm not going to talk. Oh, I want to tell you about Keith DeSelms. Keith DeSelms is a little red-haired child. I don't know, whatever you think about the little red-haired boy in your world, the Dennis the Menace kind of red-haired boy. Keith came up with this great idea one day when I was in youth ministry. And Keith was first grade, second grade or so. And Keith came up to me and said, Larry. Yes, Keith. Larry, guess what? What, Keith? Say, okay, get this. It's wait time. Get this. This will be the best Christmas candlelight we've ever done. Okay, Keith, tell me about it. I said, okay, here it is. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. First thing we need is a catapult. Okay, Keith, tell me about the catapult. So we get a catapult, and we take it and we put it on the South Church lawn. Okay? We're going to crank that catapult up, and we're going to make sure that it's ready to go. I said, okay. What else we're going to do at our Christmas Easter? Oh, get this. We're going to take me. And we're going to wrap me in lights. And we're going to plug it in. And then I am going to get in the back of the catapult. Okay, Keith. Tell me about how this works. Oh, so Larry, it gets better. And I'm thinking as a young man early on in ministry, how can it get better than this? He said, we won't be inside. It'll be Christmas Eve, and we'll all be out on the street, and we'll look at our church building, and Larry, I'll point to you. And you're going to pull the trigger. And we're going to sing Silent Night as I'm catapulted over the building. I'll be the Star of Bethlehem. And I'm thinking, me too. I mean, it's like this. And nobody would not vote for putting him in the catapult. But I said, Keith, what about the landing? He said, I'll get back to you on that. Golly. Well, I've got one last story I want to share with you because I can already tell that we're running out of time and I still got a whole other page and a half of stuff we can talk about. I told Mark.
It's early.
I know. But I'm starting to lose my voice. And yeah. Anyway, yeah, we're getting hecklers in church. Wow. So one of the things that Mark said, he said, Larry, you have to come do this because your stories just suck me in. And I'm thinking most of my stories just suck. and so one particular week at camp, Mark's in here and I'm telling him what happened to me while I'm down in Southern Illinois. When I'm down in Southern Illinois, we had a family that was a little backwards, and so we went out. Me and one of the elders went out to go see them, and we went out to go see Homer and Jane, and the pig's name was Ben. And we pull up to go out see Homer and Jane, and when we get out of the car, he said, "Oh, you gotta meet these people. They come to church every night. They really need to get. That sounds great." And walk up to their porch, and there on their porch they have a three-legged pig. The three-legged pig's name is Ben. And so Homer comes out. We're sitting on the front porch. We're just talking. I said, "Homer, tell me, how in the world do you get a three-legged pig?" He said, "Oh, Ben's the best pig we've ever had." I mean, a number of years ago, little Janie, she got stuck out in the woods, and Ben knew that she was stuck out in the woods, came and got me and took me back to her and was able to save her. I said, "Oh my goodness, that's pretty cool." So at one time, Tommy was having problems with the otter and got a shirt stuck in the otter, and Ben saw what was going on with Tommy, and he came and got me, and we were able to, and everything was turned out fine. But that pig, he's just a great pig. Mark and I were, it's like, "Well, Larry, just tell me more about." It's like, I'll tell you more, Mark. That's how and finally he said, "Well, you know, there was just a time when a jack fell on little Sam, and if it wasn't for Ben jumped up under in that jack and lifted that car off of little Sam when I finally got there and drug him out." So I know, but why does he got three legs? Well, he's a good pig. You don't need a pig like that all at one time. You knew it was coming, right? Yeah. But here's the fun thing. The first time I tell that story to Mark, he's... Oh my goodness. What Mark can't stand is that I'll play the long joke on it. And it's like this thing will go on for 30 minutes. How do you do that, Larry? I don't know, I just make them up as I go. But I know that we're 20 till 8, and anyway, thank you so much for hosting us. We've had a blast. Hopefully you've had a blast too. Sometimes it's just important for us to understand that, you know, we get a little older, we all have differences, and even in the midst of all that, it's always good to laugh. So, now that people's cell phones are going off, it's officially time to pray. Hey, I'm going to pray for us, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark. Would you please pray with me? Father God, there's probably been absolutely nothing more spiritual tonight other than just have a good time. And I thank you so much for all the stories and all the people that we get to meet in our life, and just the things you do. Help us to know it's okay to laugh, and that you bless your children through these things. We just thank you so much for your love. I thank you so much for your son Jesus, and I thank you so much for Freedom Christian Church and what you're doing here. Just keep touching people's lives and help us to do that, and help us to use laughter when necessary. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Yeah, he sucked quite a few of us in to his vortex camp, and that's why I got one Larry story.
Yeah, please. We all know what payback is.
No, it's just short. I just like his answers because, you know, sometimes when kids at camp come and ask you a question, you try to get philosophical and you're super spiritual Messiah type, you know, to give that example to them. He's walking around with a big walking stick.
Yeah, I've got a big walking
with
stick.
your safari hat
Yeah.
on, and you look so ominous and scary to the children.
Yeah.
And it was about a 9-year-old walks up to Larry and goes, "How come you have a big stick?" He looks down, "'Cause you don't." And the little boy goes, "Okay." How come you have a lightsaber?
Yeah.
Because I don't.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
But if you appreciate what there's a basket over here, you can bless him with a gift, and just go home tonight with a smile and get ready for the world tomorrow, because tomorrow, and don't worry about tomorrow because today has its own trouble. Well, Tony's right here. But anyway, by the way, his last name is Hope. So if you ever need some hope, come get him. So anyway, we love you. See you again. Thanks for all the food. God bless.